Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Left, Right, and Center show. This is me, and this is Timothy, and this is Christopher. We're glad to be with you again. We're going to talk a lot today about cancel culture, right? We're going to talk about sort of how it started, what it is, what's going on with it right now. Chris is gonna explain it probably a little bit from the left side of things, which is going to be interesting. It's what we're here for. Cross-aisle conversation. But first, as always, going to do some news and memes. So, did you guys hear about the Uyghur genocide report?
I haven't heard about the report. I mean, I know about the Uyghur genocide situation a little bit.
What were you saying, Chris?
I have not yet, no.
Okay, all right, cool. All right, so this is news for everybody. So, there's this report that's come out, and, now that I'm talking about it, I'm like, actually, I don't know really where this report came from, but it's supposed to be some reputable person, Newslines Institute for Strategy and Policy. I have no idea who that is, but I gleaned this out of a news story.
It looks reputable. So
one of those rare instances where I actually clicked on a link, like for the source, right? So I actually went diving for the source, and I came up with this, right? This.
We go with Newslines Institute as the source, just gut feeling.
Yes. Yeah, I think I said that. I have no idea who that is, though. That's my point. That's my only point. Okay. All right. So I'm not going to go through this whole damn thing. I haven't read this whole damn thing. It's very long. I'm sure it's very detailed. But I'm going to go to page 3. I'm going to give you a little bit of the high level, like some of this stuff, right? So it's come out that. And there's a quote from here that I read in the article that by every definition of genocide, right, via international law, the Uyghur genocide is considered a genocide, right? Like, so all of the propaganda from the Chinese government, all of them trying to hide this, hide that, deflect this, deflect that, give some. If they were giving tours of the camps where people, like the Uyghurs were singing patriotic songs beside the road and telling everybody how they're so happy to be, employed by China finally, like all that propaganda. They're pulling out all the stops, and still this report comes out. And I'm just going to read a little bit of it here. So, in 2014, China's head of state, President Xi Jinping, launched the People's War on Terror in that province. I'm not going to, it's an acronym, making areas where the Uyghurs constitute nearly 90% of the population the front line. High-level officials followed up with orders to round up everyone who should be rounded up, wipe them out completely, destroy them root and branch, break their language, break their roots, break their connections, and break their origins. Right? This is quotes from high-level Chinese authorities. Officials described Uyghurs with dehumanizing terms and repeatedly likened the mass internment of Uyghurs to eradicating tumors. So it's official, right? So if you ever wondered what it was like being in the United States while Nazi Germany was on the rise, while there was disturbing reports of Jews being rounded up and other minorities, now this is exactly what it feels like.
Yeah. It's right out in the open. It's like it does not feel. I mean, what do we do though, right? Like, what does the three of us do? It's.
I don't know.
It's just crazy that the global community is not reacting to this stronger.
I think it's because every Western and modern culture or I should say society, not culture, is so intertwined economically with China that everyone's afraid of what the repercussions will be for themselves, right? Like if we were to just cancel trade with China, right? Let's cancel China. Let's do it. Yeah. What would happen? Like we get everything through there. It's some way or another. It's
all of our antibiotics
for our economy. So medicines, materials for stuff we make here. Even if we do make it here, the material comes from a lot of it comes from China. Like, it's one of the downsides or risks of a global economy without having a global culture.
Right.
Is when you do have cultural disagreements, the economic impact is now at play. I don't know what the right answer is, really. I mean, I think the right answer is to work towards pulling our economy out of China, but it can't be an immediate thing, or it won't be an immediate thing. It has to be a slow shift. But
Yeah.
I think that's the path.
From what I understand, Joe Biden's actually started the ball rolling on that. I'm not sure if it was his administration or somebody in his administration or whatever, because I don't even know if he's really in charge, but it's besides the point. I think I heard that they're working on creating supply lines that are China free.
I do think that the global economy does look like it's like trying to figure out swift actions to condemn China in the most like productive way, because it's a good point, right? Like, what if we go to war with China, then all of a sudden our supply lines for medicine is cut off? It's not even just like the cute stuff, right? Like we can live without Pokemon cards being manufactured.
Right.
We can't live without like
not just plastic toys.
Yeah, we can live without some Tupperware and whatnot. We can't live without the critical stuff. And so, but then again, is like we have to ask ourselves, and this is the hard questions, like, all right, are these items, are our commodities like worth turning an eye to genocide? And I would argue, I mean, it's not that black and white, but no, it's not. And so we have to find ways to like condemn China on the world stage and go the extra step, because this is horrendous.
Right. And I think perhaps, it gets tough, right? Because the China question is really, really, it's complicated, right? It is very complicated. But I think aside from just unilaterally pulling out of China, I think these policies should be directly tied to their actions, their human rights abuses, right?
Yeah.
So it's as long as you're committing these human rights abuses, we are moving towards removing you from our supply lines. It's that simple, right? And if you decide to stop committing human rights atrocities, we'll come back in, right? I think that's probably how it needs to be done. But
yeah, most
all right,
likely.
that was mine. What do you think, Tim? You got something?
Yeah, I can pull something up. I saw this news article here, and thought it was an interesting one to discuss. The title of the article is "Texas School Scraps Chivalry Assignment That Had Girls Obey Any Reasonable Request of a Male." When I first read this headline,
I did see this.
I was like, "What?" And then I saw that it was in Texas, and I was like, "Oh, okay." Yeah. And then, but to be honest, if you reading through this article, and when I finished reading through it, I was like, nothing wrong with that, really. I mean, it's a little extreme, but I didn't think it was necessarily a problem. I mean, some of the things that let me read off of this page here. Some of the things that the female students were supposed to do is ladies must dress in a feminine manner to please the men. Ladies must address all men respectful by title with a lowered head. Ladies must not complain or whine. Christ. Ladies must never criticize a male. Ladies must cook something for the gentlemen in their class.
Oh my God.
Ladies must initiate conversations with males. Ladies must walk behind men or walk daintily as if their feet were bound, right? But the idea
as if their feet was bound.
Yeah. The idea of this is I believe it's a history class. And it's a one-day thing. It's in its assignment, but it's helping to teach the history of sexism and chivalry and how things were. So the idea of this is that all the students know this is how people were in the 1300s. That's the point of this exercise, right? And the men also, the boys in the class, the men in the class, were also given an assignment, where and it doesn't have all of the stuff that they were supposed to do, but it says, gentlemen will rise when a lady walks into the room. Gentlemen shall bow when greeting a lady. Boys were to call girls milady and pay all expenses if they took them out. Like, the whole idea was to take a day and spend it in the life of a historical way of living, right? It's not about teaching sexism to our kids today, right? It's about learning how things were done in the 1300s. Now, I get that it can be controversial, and that's why it says right at the bottom, one of the very last lines that nobody's ever going to read, the students who didn't want to participate were allowed to opt out.
Yeah, every article clickbait, no matter what.
So with all that said, like that, I kind of threw everything out there without asking you for your guys' opinions, but I didn't want I don't want to lead you on without you getting all the information. I didn't want to be just a title, right? What do you guys think about it now that you know kind of the inner workings?
A bit more surprised. I was pretty alarmed when I first saw it. I didn't take the time to learn the more inner workings. But yeah, I can see that. I can see like this being and I guess that goes into it blends really nicely into the main discussion. But not to get ahead of it, context definitely matters. And I think if done right with the correct teachers, this could be a really valuable lesson to wrap up and be like, hey, men and women should not be in these gendered roles, because as the men and women both saw, like how disturbing it was to fulfill certain roles, how disturbing it was to see their counterpart fulfill these roles in a very isolated manner. It's like, all right, this is abnormal. This is a problem. It'd be nice to see if a lot of people took this and learned from it. I mean, I remember one time in high school, we had a lesson in Lord of the Flies. Did you guys read that book?
I actually never read that.
Okay.
Well, I kind of like danced around it. It was assigned in several different classes that I just like happened to take the other class, I don't know.
I probably don't remember.
Well, the premise of it that I'm glad I asked is basically, a bunch of kids on an abandoned island and they have to self-govern themselves, and it turns into chaos because it's basically like an analogy of like people can't kids are sociopaths, but also a lot of conversation and in the ability to self-govern without like structures and order, and how easy it's like basically, honest to God, if you go watch The Dark Knight with the Joker trying to murder the mayor and turns the whole city in chaos, basically the same thing. And so it's The Dark Knight, but a kid's book. And so anyways, I had a teacher who what he did was he took all the desks, and there's one day in the year, it was when we're done, he did it every year. He would take all the desks and flip them over in the morning. He destroyed the room. He'd flip his desk over. All the kids' desks would be piled up in a giant pile. He literally destroyed all the walls in his rooms. And every class would come in for their hour block. It was one of the coolest things ever. And you had to self-govern the classroom. So basically it was like a mini experiment. It's does someone get elected a teacher? Does someone give out the actual assignment of the day? Do people clean up the room? And we did a pretty good job of it. We actually did, but it was one of those really cool immersive lessons, and I'll never forget it. And so it sounds like this is one of those things that got hijacked by the news.
So I'm going to do the typical thing where I conservative all over it. But so I'm just going to point out a couple things. We actually yeah, I know. yeah, exactly. So there's a couple things I'm going to point out, right? And I think I mentioned some of this last week, and that's that the past is glossed over in favor of an ideological endpoint, right? And I actually think so. I like the idea of this. I really do. I like it, and you can teach a valuable lesson that way. I think I just have a couple pointers for it, right? If you're actually going for historical accuracy and you're teaching what it was like in the 1300s rather than just hey, men were always sexist to women, right? So a little bit of extra context, right? The social strictures between women were also incredibly strict, right? So it was just as oppressive between women of a higher rank and women of a lower rank, right? It's not just that men are oppressing women; it's that the social hierarchy is oppressing basically everybody, right? And then point number 2, in order to make it a little bit more accurate, how about we send the students off to war where 30% of them are going to die? How about that, right? Okay. So, all right, fine, right, I can do that. But
I'm moving my kids to a different school.
Yeah, exactly, right. So,
30% of the student body is just gone. Sorry, guys.
Right? Yeah, exactly. It was a good lesson. It was a good lesson.
But two of your kids survived, and they have learned a lot. Okay.
The survivors have been shaped for the rest of their lives.
So look. Okay. So I'm not going to belabor the point, but the issue is that people tend to take a unidimensional view of the past, right? It's chivalry was men oppressing women. It's no, it's everybody was oppressed by everybody. The men were oppressed by the men above them. They, women were technically subservient, but they were also oppressed by the women over them. Everybody was oppressing each other. Men were going off and dying, and the women were going off and dying in childbirth. History was just a shitty place, right? And there were problems with chivalry. Obviously, I don't advocate chivalry, but it's not that unidimensional.
And talk to my wife. She gets so mad when I don't like open the door, do all these things. And I tell her like,
there's that too. I wasn't going to bring that up.
Like that's an unfair line to draw. I think chivalry can be rightfully called out for like different components, right? There's poverty and there's impression of social class, but there's also oppression of men and women. I mean, women have had a degraded role in society all the way up until modern times, and even today we can argue. I mean, look at Saudi Arabia, right? Like it's so like you can like are you going to tell me that Saudi Arabia, they're not just mistreating women, it's also the billionaire oil people that are just oppressing everybody? It's like, no, that's unidimensional, but there's multiple conversations.
There's a difference there, right? So, and then I'm going to let this go after this because feminism, whatever, that's a very big topic. But to your point right there, so you're talking about a class or a society-based system, right? The system would be the religion, right? The religion has religious precepts for this is how women are treated. In medieval Europe, funny enough, right? All that chivalry stuff, that was the 1%, right? That was the 1% oppressing each other, right? The peasants didn't have to do that shit. Neither the men, well, the men had to go off and die still, but the women didn't have to, curtsy or follow men around. That was strictly a nobility thing.
Yeah. I rest my case. But
same.
To close my thoughts on this, I think one of the values of something like this, it doesn't have to be exactly this particular lesson or anything, right? But I think we can become too blind to how things used to be, and not really have a good understanding of them. Even if you read in a book about sexism or racism or slavery, like you don't really have an idea of what that means or what it was like. And not that this really gives you an equal view of that as if you live there, but it's a step in the right direction to understanding, how things could be, how they used to be, why they're better now, which gives you a better idea of how to continue to improve and move forward. And so I think it's a good idea in general to try and teach these things. I'm
still in favor of the battle.
The battle.
If that's the only thing they take away from this.
Oh my god.
Next.
All right. Well, mine's quick. I don't have an image just because it seems if I pull up images, my computer will crash. But so Marjorie Taylor Greene, our Trump's favorite member of the House of Representatives, is it's just really crazy. I don't know if you've been following the stories, but basically she's been pissing off both Republicans and Democrats. Every week, she's been casting a vote, trying to gunk up through procedure, and like a buzzed term is policy is procedure, and procedure is policy. Good procedure creates good legislation, and so most votes that are coming up, Marjorie Taylor Greene is just in the middle of the votes putting forward a vote to adjourn, like a motion to adjourn, and so then everybody has to stop the main vote and go take a step back. And then everybody has to vote, and everyone has to run back to the hall. So basically, for those, I'm gonna take a step back because I think this is really important information. When people, this is how Congress has always been. It's never been any other way, and it's probably the most equitable way to do this. But I realize that this might be foreign to people on the outside, so I just want to give a policy lecture. When you vote, it's not like it's very much like when you vote on election day. You don't just vote at a given time. You have the whole day. You have a time frame to cast your vote. It's not 100 people sitting around the table and then they say, okay, board meeting vote, who wants to pass this budget, who doesn't. It's it's election day on every single vote. And so
I didn't know that actually.
Yeah, so most votes
go for everything from committee up through everything, or is that specifically
committee requires everyone to be there. If you're not there, you miss a vote. But on floor votes, it's election day style. Like you have the whole day to vote, cast, or certain time frames depending on the framework that's set. So you have to be in DC to cast your vote. But let's just arbitrarily say, I don't think this is the actual parameters, but let's say you have 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. to cast a vote. I'm sure it's less than that. You can go cast your vote in the middle of the day, and then you can also attend your committee assignment. You can also go and, maybe you have to fly back home to do something in your home state. People in Congress, every single Republican, Democrat, being a member of Congress is likened to having a fire hose on full blast just shoved in your face. Like, it is a busy job. So they have, like, even the members of Congress you hate the most, they're busy still. You're dealing with veterans, you're dealing with immigrant
requests. I thought my
requests.
feeling on people in Congress affected how busy they were. If I didn't like them, they didn't get any work.
Oh, I'm just covering the bases, but yeah. So anyways, so just to roll it back, what Marjorie Taylor Greene is doing is she's calling motion to adjourn in the middle of a vote, and what that actually does is it forces everybody to stop what they're doing, go back to the House floor, and cast a vote to say no, they don't want to adjourn, to be able to move the meeting forward. And if they're not there, it reduces quorum on that particular vote in the section of votes that are occurring. So what ends up happening is everybody else, Republicans and Democrats alike, that are in the middle of their committee hearings, have to leave their committees, go back to the House floor, say no, we don't want this vote to stop, go back to their committees, so when the committees are done, they can go back and actually cast a vote.
Because until they get that vote in, voting doesn't happen, and that means less people are going to vote because they don't have time.
Yeah, and then eventually, what she's hoping for, it's not going to happen because it's like bipartisan opposition against her at this point. People are getting pissed off. Like first, like 17, 19 around that, Republicans voted like no. Most people just abstained, but now it's up to 40. Every single time she does this, it increases because all these people are doing other shit, and they have to come back. And she's like, I'm going to keep doing it. Trump wants me. And it's just really annoying. I really, for the love of God, I hope someone primaries her and beats her because,
Whoa, that sounds violent.
Primary means beats her in an election, not cancel culture beating.
Not Chris Brown style.
No, not Chris Brown style. The Joe Biden style.
Hey, listen, champ, you want to do push-ups? I'll beat the shit out of you.
We got the presidency.
I feel like Biden might have had like a really good right hook back in the day,
I'm sure he did.
He was
a handsome feller. I mean, that doesn't mean anything, but
yeah. I could throw a bunch. He was pretty hot.
yeah, I guess. Okay. So I don't know if you want to say anything on that. I agree with you, Chris. I don't have too much to say in that. Look, she's a firebrand. I don't really like her. I like her as a troll, but I acknowledge that's not the way forward. Like we shouldn't be electing trolls. So
Yeah,
I chuckle.
Yeah, her and Lauren Boebert are messy. They're messy, dude. They're
Which one's
there's
the one
something
who's
in the house
carrying on Capitol grounds? Lauren?
What was that?
Which one's the one that's carrying on Capitol grounds?
That's Lauren Boebert.
Good for her.
She actually has domestic abuse charges.
I heard that.
Yeah.
I thought that was a prereq for being elected as a Republican.
You stop.
She got it all.
I'm not even going to counter that because it would be me. Okay. So I don't have an article for the second one, but I just wanted to bring up that the George Floyd trial is underway.
I thought that was already going.
So they're doing jury selection right now.
Okay.
And it is a long process. I don't know, Chris, did you watch any of it? Did you see any clips or anything? Did you see anybody talking about it?
I haven't, but I can only imagine the stress that goes behind selecting as neutral jury as humanly possible. I feel like this is the trial of like being the cops. Do you ever watch Daredevil? Mm-hmm. When Frank Castle is brought to the stand?
Yeah,
that's basically what the cops are going through. Like they are Frank Castle. Like they but not as redeemable.
Dude, that's right. I forgot about that scene. All right, for anybody who hasn't seen, that was in Daredevil, right? Yeah, it was.
It was
obviously.
Daredevil. Yeah.
There was Frank Castle, the notorious murderer. Everybody in the country knows about him. They bring him in, and they're trying to get a jury selection for the guy. And everybody's coming in, and they're like, Frank Castle should be strung up in the electric chair and fried, and all that kind of stuff. And then there's like the other guys who are like, Frank Castle's a hero. I love that guy. And it's like you can't get a jury because everybody freaking knows who the guy is, and they have an opinion. And it's the same. It's the same with this. They spent all day going through jurors, and they got 3. And
wow.
it was it was warranted, right? Because there were some guys that were showing up, and they're like, "Yeah, I think I could be fair," and then the defense attorney grills them a little bit because that's how they select them. The defense and the prosecution both ask questions of the jurors, and he's like, "So what did you form an opinion on what happened to my client on that day?" He's like, or what went down with my client. He's basically asking, what did you think of what happened on the day where George Floyd dies? And he's like, yeah, the cop killed him. And he's like, okay, are you willing to change that opinion if you're provided with evidence? And he's like, maybe. He's like, and then he's like, Your Honor, can I have a moment? And then the judge is like, all right, I'm going to dismiss you from jury duty. Thanks for being honest with us. It's like that happened all day. It was grinding.
They're just not going to it's going to be almost impossible to find someone, because like at this point, Republicans, Democrats, conservatives, liberals, all alike are like, yeah, the cops messed up. Like it's like you got to find those people that literally are both have like a reasonable IQ and live in their basement under a rock. Like you need both of them right now. Like you can't just have like some like dude living in the basement.
Well, just search the WoW forums.
What?
WoW forums. That's
yeah.
That's a stab at our producer. By the way,
go grab like the top players on RuneScape. I think that's those are the people.
Yeah, the people that they found were generally apolitical. There was one guy that he was like a chemist. He saw the news story, but he did form an opinion, but it was very apparent that he was an analytical person, kind of like you, Tim. He was very willing to take whatever new data was going to come at him, whatever was going to happen, and make a new decision.
Yeah, if you guys need a juror, my numbers. Actually, I do not. I don't think I want to be on that jury. Oh, that'd be
here's what I wanted to bring up, Chris, and we have a couple minutes until we have to go into the main segment. Well, actually, for both of you, but what I'm really, really worried about, right? So the courthouse, for people who don't know, the courthouse that this is all taking place in is, barricaded military style, because that area is the center of the George Floyd riots. And they're worried about riots if the wrong verdict comes out. And my question to you, Chris, is are you ready for him to be acquitted? Because he's probably going to be acquitted of those charges.
Yeah, because all police are like they're almost always, because like.
Well, I mean, I would say justifiably so, but.
No, there's no way. Like, there's no way. This guy has had other charges. We've seen like.
I know.
Like this
but
guy's
of what they are charging him with, 2nd-degree murder, and man, I forget what the other one is. There's no case. There's very little case.
There's a strong case, but the immunity that police officers have are what legally is going to protect him.
I mean, I would argue.
Qualified
I don't
immunity.
know. Yeah, sorry for interrupting. I don't know the details of it, but I'm going to go ahead and say that there probably is a fairly strong case, regardless of if it's likely to go through or not, or they wouldn't be prosecuting him on those charges. They would have picked different charges.
I mean, that's not necessarily true.
And the dude was innocent either way. Like, he wasn't even doing anything that they presupposed. But I will see what happens. But I mean, honestly, you're gonna have, like, here's the reality: you're gonna have riots. Like, if he's acquitted.
I know.
Like, there's
it's
no
not
doubt.
Gonna be the right. It's not. It's not. Like this is where the gaslighting comes into full effect, because it's like, well, we just had a whole summer of this, $2 billion down. Okay, now everybody's bitching about the Capitol riot, and now we're about to go right back into it, and we're going to forget that we were just yelling at Republicans for rioting.
I'm going to hold my ground on this. I'm going to make sure I condemn rioting on this. Like, no one should be like. There's other ways to change this, and the first and foremost, the way that we need to do to change this is we need a Supreme Court level decision, and maybe this will go. Maybe this, if he's acquitted, I bet it'll be appealed. Because we need a conversation on qualified immunity. It is insanity that police officers have zero, very reduced training, and yet are able to handle like these military style stuff. Like, there's so many. This is a conversation beyond just chokeholds, right? This is a conversation on police departments having tanks. It's a conversation on the new technology that's coming into the world of policing. Think about, like, Nate, we were just talking about this, like the police dogs. There's no legislation on unmanned robots walking a street and fucking putting a gun on that thing. There's zero legislation anywhere. There's nothing that says
there should probably be some legislation on that.
There's nothing.
RoboCop.
Right?
I've seen the movie.
Yeah.
You can build, if you built a RoboCop right now and it was commissioned by a police station and you put a rocket launcher on it, there is zero legislation to say that can't happen.
Yeah, that's
I'm going to go ahead and say crime is going to drop in that scene.
Look, that's a little fantastical because once that happens, there will be legislation around it.
Sure,
first time it happens.
But you know what? There's a lot of other things that there's light legislation on. But to go back, qualified immunity as it stands with actual humans is an immortal power legislatively. It's the same thing as freaking tenure. I think tenure and qualified immunity should be in the same boat. Like, we need to reduce tenure and we need to change qualified immunity. You should not be a god within your profession. Like, you should not like I don't have qualified immunity. Oh my god, if I give a student a car ride and I get into a car accident, even if I had a student sign a paper or something, I'm getting sued. Like, but yet here you have police officers who can literally violate their training or have zero training and handle some type of like military grade stuff. And because of qualified immunity, we protect them. Professors, unless they literally shoot somebody on their campus, aren't fired. Like, come on.
Unless they shoot someone on Fifth Avenue.
Honest to God, Nate, there is a professor at a state college in Connecticut. Tim, it's going to blow your mind. There's a professor right now, and I honest to God, I think qualified immunity and tenure are the same conversation to be had. This professor, like assaulted someone, like domestic assault, some crazy charge, right? And it happened off campus. And this is not the one you're thinking of, Nate. This is a more unknown one. And
okay.
he ends up going to jail for it, right? But because it happens off campus and has nothing to do with the student, he's actually protected by tenure. So the teachers union negotiates with the prosecutor and gets a sentence that this guy actually goes to prison Friday through Sunday and then comes back to campus to teach Monday through Thursday on house arrest, and then goes back to prison Friday through Sunday to serve a sentence. Like, that is the insanity of tenure and qualified immunity. We need to do away with that.
So let me just ask you a question. So that could be injustice, and we do have to move on to the main topic here in a second. So I'll let both of you have your say with this after this. But would you not say, and I hear this argument a lot, that that he's paying his dues to society, so why should there be ramifications for him on campus?
I just, like, you're a professor, like there's the, you know what I mean, like, it's
but anybody at any standard, at any place in this country should be up to moral standards. It's about whether they're paying the price or not.
Sure. And I guess that's the argument.
Look, I'm not just trying to be a hard ass. I mean, I've heard that argument before. It probably depends on the context. Like, maybe this is pretty egregious, maybe it's not. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's just, like, character-wise, do you want a professor that is, like, committing domestic abuse, or even other? Let's take another situation. There are plenty of situations where the professors have, gotten into problematic situation with students, like sexual assault, and because of the union actually protects the professor to the point that the schools have to pay them off to leave. Like, there was just a professor in the theater department that got it was off the record. It was off out of the news, but it's there if you dig for it, Nate. A couple $100,000 plus full retirement benefits for him to step down after the accusal and successful proof of it. Like,
I would have to see the details.
It's insanity. And so
I just want to confirm, Nate, are you defending tenure? Like, are you supportive of tenure?
No. I'm being obstreperous on purpose.
Thanks.
Okay. Because I feel like tenure is the opposite of cancel culture. So if you were supportive of tenure, but then not supportive of cancel culture,
no. So this actually, you know what? This kind of funny enough. This kind of segments is I'm mostly trying to I'm actually speaking to the court of public opinion here, right? I'm kind of just wheedling Chris on because I want to make sure it's like, well, I mean, what was this a very consensual relationship both ways, and like that's still bad, right? Because of the power dynamic, but like it's not as bad as like did he drag a student in the back alley and have his way with her, right? There's like two different things, and the response should be different, I think, even if legally it's the same thing. Right, especially in the court of public opinion. So my point is not about whether or not he should be tenured or not. Like, that's not really what I'm talking about. What I'm getting about is should he be canceled? Right, kind of. Right, and we're getting into the main topic here. But again, so like just because I know there's a whole bunch of people in the audience freaking out since we have hundreds of thousands of viewers right now. I'm not like if this was as bad as you are thinking it is, then I'm not defending it, right? I'm saying that it might not be as bad as you think it is, right? And maybe it isn't, right? Until you see all the details of the case, try to withhold judgment, I suppose, and not cancel people.
Well, I guess just to wrap it up, I just am very much against qualified immunity and tenure, and so that's what we gotta work on those things in the future.
Yeah.
Personal responsibility, my friend.
Personal responsibility.
That's I'm all about it.
Me too, actually. Me too.
One major news topic. We get checks in the mail.
We do. We're getting our post and
yeah. So I had an article I wanted to put, or a meme I wanted to pull up for that just real quick. All right, that's the meme. I'm done. So.
Yeah. Well, it's coming. It's coming, and so's inflation. So,
well, that was coming anyway, probably. But yeah, the checks probably won't help. But depending on how inflation isn't really necessarily a terrible thing or a bad thing. It can be. I'm not saying that it's not a risk and we don't need to worry about it. But
I don't mean regular inflation. I mean runaway inflation.
Hyperinflation.
Thank you. That's the one.
Yeah, that's yet to be figured. Right now from what I've been seeing, they're projecting maybe 2.5%, 3.5% for the next year before it drops back down to 2%. That's not bad. The Fed, 2 to 3.
Okay.
We've been below 2 for a while, and the Fed is shooting for 2. So they've even said that if inflation goes up to 3.5 in the short term, they're not going to change policy because of that. If it goes up much higher than that, they probably will. But their goal is to get it at like 2.5.
All right, or just buy Bitcoin, everybody. Just kidding. All right.
Last week, you should have bought it last week.
Oh, you should have. Yes. Like somebody, one of the fortunate hosts of this podcast. Anyways.
Oh, let me check my Bitcoin then.
What's that?
Let me check my Bitcoin. I got $20 floating in there.
There you go, bro. You probably have like
now
25
$22
right now.
Wow, look at this. Look at this, guys. I have $27 of Bitcoin. Oh shit.
Money. Yo, buy me a yacht.
Yeah, no.
Okay. All right. Let me get into this. Okay, so I want to start off cancel culture with a little bit of cultural context, right? So we talked a little bit about it last week that the I don't know that necessarily. I think Chris agreed with me a little bit. I'm not putting words in his mouth. That the pendulum is definitely swung to the left as far as those who are canceling right now. I think
I agree.
we all agreed that the cancellations in the 90s were definitely conservative Christians. It was egregious then. It's egregious now. It's just different flavors. So let's start talking about this. So this graph that I have pulled up right here. This is a study from the Cato Institute. And it's talking about 62% of Americans say they have political views that they're afraid to share, right? And this is going to kind of like set the stage for sort of the modern political climate and why the cancellations are so easy to go through with, right? And the graph that I want to show you right here, this is the people who can who agree with this following statement. The political climate these days prevents me from saying things I believe because others might find them offensive. Okay, that statement is what's being ranked here, right? So over here on the left, you have strongly liberal, and you go over here and you go to strong conservative, right? And so the people that agree that the political climate keeps them from talking about their political opinions, strongly liberal, it's only 42% of those people, right? And then as you swing over to the right, it gets up to conservative, where 77% of conservatives think that they cannot state their political beliefs in public, right? And so the reason why I bring this up is
so
not
basically
just,
that shows that conservatives are racist.
yeah, you could say that, and you could keep saying that all the way up until we have a civil war because nobody's listening to each other. I know you're joking.
I am joking, yes.
Right. But
so not to interrupt you, but I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
A question on your thoughts on that. So, I mean, I love data, right? I like this graph. We've talked about this particular topic in passing, I think, in a couple podcasts, but we haven't really dug into it. So, like, what are some of the reasons that this could be, right? It could be that, which I think is your implication, that the media or the culture today is very, canceling of the right viewpoints. And that's why that's happening. Or it could be that the difference in the viewpoints is one of them is much like the people that are that truly believe the things on the far left generally don't have thoughts or feelings or political views that are thought to be potentially hurtful or might hurt somebody's feelings or something, whereas as other people, specifically as you get further into the conservative views, they do, right? Not that they're racist or not that there's anything wrong with their points of views. It's just their point of view is more like, I don't give a shit what you think. This is how I feel.
No,
whereas, or I'm just throwing out possibilities, right? Like, we can talk about it, but what do you think is the driver or some of the potential drivers behind, that difference?
Yeah. So I can tell you that as a conservative, right? So let's say my HR department was to push a unconscious bias training to the company, right? Unconscious bias, for those who don't know, is it is generally a derivative of critical race theory, which is a very far left race theory. If I were to sort of principally oppose that, I would be scared to lose my job. Not only would I be scared to lose my job, but I would just, in general, socially be scared to oppose that, even though I am principally opposed to critical race theory. Right? I was thinking about this the other day, actually. I was like, if my HR wants to push critical race theory and I want to oppose them, I don't know if I could face the people in HR. And the reason is, it's not because I'm a virulent racist who just doesn't want to take the training. It's because I have a very hard to explain nuanced position on why I'm opposed to unconscious bias training, which goes down to critical race theory, which goes into, postmodern neo-Marxism, like a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm not going to explain those because I would have to explain. Right. I know we talked about this last week, Tim. I can't, the point, this is the exact point. I would have to talk about why I'm rooted, why I have principled opposition with all of those different facets that undergird this unconscious bias training. And there's no time for that. And while I'm doing it and I'm starting to sweat a little bit more because I'm getting stony faces, like everybody's just looking at me like, nah, this guy's a racist. Right?
Yeah,
so like I have principled opposition. Racist. Yeah. Listen, so my point
that's
is
the show for today, guys.
Yeah.
My point is
now that we know Nate's a racist.
Yeah.
All right, guys, it's been nice.
Yeah. Hey, man, come back. You've already been canceled. It doesn't matter. They've already got you just for associating with me. They have you on camera with me. It's over. But okay, look. The point is that all of this stuff is hard. It's not seen as the virtuous stance to take, right? The virtuous stance to most people who are not political is to just be like, oh, this is just training on how not to be racist. That's fine. It's like, whatever. It's annoying, but whatever, I'll do it. Just like 90% of people who are apolitical and just want to get through the training and don't care, right? So that's one example. I'm trying to kind of paint a picture. Does that make any sense? I'm curious what you think about that, Chris.
Yeah, all right, so I know the point you're trying to make, but I'm going to disagree with you specifically on the example you gave, just because I personally think, I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole. If you sit through a well put together subconscious bias training, it's going to be really beneficial, and you're going to learn a lot, and you're going to realize.
Well, hold on. Let me stop you there. I'm not really talking about the substance of the. I'm not really talking about whether it works or doesn't work or whether it's a good thing. My point is that I would have principled opposition to that, but I can't say it because it's just considered rude.
My hand looks tiny in the green screen. Anyways, it's like just
I just
like
have tiny hands. So I don't know.
You related to Trump?
No, it was like numbing it. Anyways, beside the point. I just want to put myself on the record there, but like, yeah, I mean, the reality is like, yeah, it does work. It does work in that sense. But I will say this. I to the graph that you shared and the data you're providing, I think there's multiple layers to this, and one of those is you might have some more, conservatives may lean into the realm of things that are more uncomfortable to share out loud. Like, for example, I would say this is probably a better example, maybe what you're trying to get at. Maybe a conservative feels that it would be wrong to say, yeah, I'm actually scared to walk down the streets of downtown Hartford, right? Because then somebody else is going to be like, are you afraid of African Americans and black people? Or are you racist? It's like, no, it's actually just
close there. Right? But look, look, let me give you more examples. Like, it's everything, right? If I say to any non-political person that the wage gap has almost nothing to do with your actual sex, right? It has more to do with the choices that men and women are like it's a multivariate problem that spans across a whole bunch of different dimensions, right? It's not just gender, right? I don't have time to say that kind of stuff in public, right? But that's not even the point. If I just say, hey, the wage gap actually isn't really a real thing, right? That right there, which I actually believe, and that's a very mainline conservative belief.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And look,
so,
exactly. And don't even gloss over that reaction right there is what average people would give to me saying that. And that is a mainline conservative view.
I agree with you that there's a lot to that, and I didn't really like your workplace example, especially coming from you, Mr. Freedom, because if I was an owner of a company and I decided to, well, I'll tell you, this explains why I said that. If I was the owner of a company and I decided to give training on why Trump was a better presidential candidate, and I was going to fire you if you didn't take this mandatory training, that should be okay in your world, right? Your freedom of
no, that's discrimination against like
no, it's all about free market, buddy. No regulation.
You're pigeonholing me. I don't accept it.
But anyway, so I didn't like that one, but I like the other examples you talked about. But so to go on those, let's say I walk into a Catholic church and I say God's not real, right? Like I'm not going to be.
You are going into a place to antagonize people you know who are going to be there. This is the general populace that I'm talking about.
Right. So right? I guess
I can't say, look, guys, I can't. Look, I'm not trying to make this a victim fest. I am trying to tell you my experience, right, Chris? Lived experience. Okay. I'm trying to tell you that if I tell people that I don't think that black people are oppressed as an institution in the United States, that will get me stares. That will get me looks.
Yeah, but
I'm here to listen to you, honest to God, honestly, because I think these are all, one, podcast topics, but two, look, if that's how you feel, man, like there's genuine conversations to be had around that. And I think that we should, and this really pushes me into the next part I was going to say when we look at this data, is it pushes us as well is that, one, we need to have discourse. Like, people are going to believe different things, and, maybe we convince each other. Maybe we agree to disagree. But at the end of the day, we still have our humanity. Like, we're not going to mistreat people, even though your beliefs may completely contradict my beliefs and the way of the systems of the world. I do believe that at the end of the day, you aren't doing anything that is going to be perpetuating a negative outcome, right? Or increasingly affirm an existing negative outcome. Like, you're doing, at the end of the day, we want the same thing. But the second thing I was going to say is, when we look at these stats, I think this is also a snapshot in time, because to me, like, the line is also drawing further and further. Like, today you see 42% of liberals maybe don't want to speak up, but I'm actually finding things like, now I'm like, I can't post on Facebook that I disagree with, like, what happened on Mulberry Street being lifted, like the Dr. Seuss book. I can't post that. Like, it would get, I've seen other people do it, and I'm like, I could, but I don't want to deal with the repercussion. I'm like, you know, it's just not worth my time. Like, I have a job. I have other things to worry about right now.
Right. And so does 90% of people. And that's actually that point right there is a huge point. Is that most people aren't me. Like, first of all, I could do it, right? If I can have a conversation with anybody about why I don't think there's institutional racism in the United States. That's because I've done years and years of podcasting and research and all this other stuff.
You developed your opinion. Sure.
Correct. But 90% of the population, and that's just a guess, they don't know how to do that, right? And that includes Republicans who believe what I believe, but they haven't done the research to back it up, right? So
I would say like people like myself, like the progressives, have the same argument on the other side. We've spent hours like studying and learning, and like this is why we do believe in critical race theory. We do believe there's a gender gap. We do believe in these things, and we have our and that was the birth of the Left, Right, Center show, my friends. Yeah, to people doing the research. But I get what you're saying. Yep. Being the reality is it's a bit more socially acceptable for me in a given circle than it is for you right now, and that's not not to make you a victim or anything, but it's like that's the reality. Like you can't, like if you sit down and meet a brand new person and say, yeah, I don't really. If you were to say something along the lines of like disavowing Black Lives Matter, the people are going to get up from the table you're at. Where if I just say, I'm like, yeah, like I support Black Lives Matter, I got a sticker on my laptop. It's like,
right.
Hey, authentically,
it's the same for all of them. If you say that women make 77 cents on the dollar for every dollar that a man makes, nobody bats an eye, right? Because it's what we've been taught from a young age. Like it takes research, whether you're right or wrong, to come up with an answer that's not that. It's just not
that. For what it's worth. For what it's worth.
So is that not a true year?
No. If I can answer that real quick, for what it's worth, I think the left gets this off a lot too. The pay gap is a bit more of a conversation in my eyes at this point on paid parental leave versus necessarily men and women, and also diversifying in terms of gender and multiple roles. But one of the biggest things that you see that happens, like, so let's say a man and a woman both get a corporate job working in insurance, and then they're both, in the field 5 years. They have the same pay because they entered the same level. They're moving up forward. They're getting promotions. Now they're an account manager. Now they're an associate vice president. But the woman and the men both decide to start families, right? So the dude has a wife, the wife has a husband, and they both have a kid at the same time, right? What's going to happen is the guy is not taking any time off of work, whereas the woman in corporate America will probably take a month, 2-3 months out. That time that they take off, excuse my words, that take off actually compounds. And so because they missed those couple months, now the man is going to be getting the next promotion that several months ahead of time because the woman was not in work because she had a baby. Even though the guy had a baby too, he's not at home for paid parental leave. And so what ends up happening is there's a forego of a promotion because the guy's been there longer. And then over the course of 20, 30, 40 years, that compounds and you end up with a pay gap. And so the conversation is really to be had on paid parental leave, both for men and women. I have paid parental leave. Like, oh my gosh, if I have a kid, I'm taking months off. I want to spend time with my kid.
Right.
Like that is what it should be. Yep. And men and women should both have paid parental leave. And we both should be able to make sure that there's some sort of acknowledgement there that knows that, we don't end up foregoing potential promotions, right? And one of the ways to do that is simply make paid parental leave normalized for men and women. Like make it normal that everybody's doing it.
So we're getting on a different topic, right?
We are. My bad. I wanted to go on that.
I just want to throw this out there, and then let's hit this on another podcast, right? But I want to throw this out there as a discussion point. Just look at the graph. We're not going to talk too deeply, but from everything, white men, Asian women, white women, black women, Hispanic women, annual earnings compared to white men's. This isn't comparing within profession. This isn't comparing it. It's just total earnings.
Yeah, that is right. Insipidly idiotic. Put Asian men on there and see what happens.
Yeah, it's probably higher than white men. I think the interesting point to look at here is that Asian women are at 97% compared to white women, right? So I think that simply right there tells you that it's not a man to woman thing purely, right? There's such a discrepancy within the race of women. So anyway, But it does show that women are much less than men, and that is what you said wasn't true. So
okay, so
let's
let me
go back
just
to
plug.
cancel culture. Another podcast.
I'm just going to explain real quick, and then we can move on. All I'm going to say is, Chris, that I appreciate that you brought it to another dimension, right? You said paid parental leave is a factor, right? And so I'm just going to circle back and say sexism is a factor. Paid parental leave is a factor. And then there's like 10, 20, 30 more factors that go into what makes a person earn more money in the workplace that has nothing to do with gender, right? So my point is that these issues are a lot more complicated. I genuinely do believe that you can be a default Republican and default Democrat, but it's harder to become a more informed Republican because I think there's much more that goes into it.
Sure. Well. So yeah, I guess
whether right or wrong, I'm not trying to whatever.
Sure.
So, but right, cancel culture.
In terms of your graph, though, I do think it's a snapshot in time because I think the line is continuing to push further and further. Because I mean, right now, I'm catching myself concerned about things being canceled.
Yeah.
Hey, I never felt
let me read this to you. Let me read this to you, Chris, because there is a trend. I'm not sure how old this is. This actually might be very recent. Yeah, this was in July of 2020. So this is actually snapshot today. But they compared it to 2017, right? So right now, back in 2017, moderates felt like 54% of them, centrist liberals felt like 54% of them could express their views. However, today, slightly less than half, 48% feel the same way, right? So there are trends, right? This problem is exacerbating. The pendulum that was swinging left or right to left it's still in its swing, right? So let's talk. Let's talk specific instances. I don't know if you have stuff, but I have I
do.
Yeah. So let me I have like a quick history, I guess. Like what kind of stuff do you have? I guess we can go to yours. What you got?
Well, I think the big one, if it's I have two major points. One being differentiating between like WAP and our favorite Ben Shapiro spoken poem and Dr. Seuss, and that's more in understanding certain arguments against cancel culture. But I do want to contextualize another problem that actually goes back to what Tim said in regards to like Pepe Le Pew, right? There's more about that than just allowing canceling because we disagree with something. We need context and we need information. So I am vehemently against that cancellation. And so I can go either one of those, or you can go first. You let me know.
Let me give what I think is a history of the modern movement of canceling. Right. So I got a couple older ones that are from when I think that the modern iterations of cancellation started beginning. And I'm sure, this is one of those graphs for, I'm sure it started low and I just wasn't aware of it back before I was political, right? I really became political in 2016, 2015, 2016. So I wasn't really aware of cancellations or anything or trends prior to that.
Sure.
So what I basically saw, and I want to know if you saw the same thing back in the day. What I saw was that cancellations on the left specifically, right? Again, we're not talking about the 90s, but in about 2016, 27 timeframe, there was a series of high-level cancellations on college campus, right? So this really, as all this stuff kind of it started on the college campuses. And it was speakers like Ben Shapiro, Milo Yiannopoulos, Jordan Peterson later on, being invited to the school by the student organization. They paid lots of money to bring the people on to come talk, and they would come talk like Ben Shapiro would come talk. He is a mainline conservative, right? He believes that abortion it should be against the law. He believes in, look, whatever you think of conservative. I mean, that's Ben, except for some of the things you'll be surprised he's actually pretty libertarian on. But the point is that he's a mainline conservative, and he on multiple points, colleges had to cancel him. There was a college that had to pay $600,000 to security to keep him safe because of students that were rioting. And then, like I said, multiple colleges turned him down. The same thing with Milo Yiannopoulos. My background today is the Berkeley riots, where Milo Yiannopoulos was speaking, and they caused $100 million in damage. And so what would happen is that the students at these various colleges,
Was it really
right? And it was a
high?
lot of them. What's that?
Was that high?
It was. I have an article right.
I didn't realize it was that bad. 100 million is no joke.
Right. Oh, there was a sentence in there that I wanted to bring up. It's kind of like a jab at CNN because the article that I have is on CNN, and it's not loading. CNN kind of does this to me. I'm sorry, everybody, but there was a line in it that said, investigators are blaming 150 masked agitators that came and what did they say? They said hijacked an otherwise peaceful protest. This was back in 2017. Like,
wow,
foreshadowing much? Like, I'm just saying. Okay, so that was CNN, but yes, it was $100 million in damage. Okay, now it's loaded. Now that I've said all that stuff. Ben Shapiro almost he got canceled from DePaul University. He was threatened to be arrested if he stepped onto campus. He was going to give, again, his normal mainline speech, right? He's just talking about conservative values, and they told him that he could no longer come on the campus. Cambridge University rescinded Jordan Peterson's invitation. They were offering him a visiting fellowship, wherever the heck that is, right? So this is all 2016, 2015, 2016, 2017. All this stuff is going on the campuses. It's driven by the largely leftist faculty and the student activists who are protesting these people, saying Ben Shapiro's a Nazi, Yiannopoulos is a Nazi, Jordan Peterson is a Nazi. You can't have this person on here. They spew hate speech. They spew this. They spew that. And then the faculty would be like, "Oh, the students are protesting. I guess you're canceled." Right? So it started there. And then around 2017, 2018 timeframe, it started spilling out, right? All these people graduated. They became the journalists that are writing the articles today. And now the cancellation stuff is more in the public sphere, right? So now we're up to the modern day, and we're going to talk about some of the things that you're talking about. But, I mean, everybody's getting canceled everywhere for not agreeing with the leftist orthodoxy from my point of view, right? Like, if you can think J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling is canceled because she is what's considered a TERF. A TERF is a trans-exclusionary radical feminist. They're radical feminists, like modern third-wave feminists that are radical feminists, but they think that trans rights sort of like infringe on women's rights, right? Because saying a trans woman is a woman means that there's no longer like actual biological female exclusive spaces, and they take issue with that. So J.K. Rowling supported this. She's canceled because that's not woke. And then I just want to pull up. I'm just going to breeze through these real quick, and then we can go to your examples and talk about this stuff. But these last three that I'm going to show you. I'm sorry, these last four that I'm going to show you. These are from today. I picked out these articles today on the front page of Yahoo News. Right, this is how much cancel culture is happening. So, Teen Vogue's new editor apologizes over racist tweets amid staff concerns. She tweeted something when she was 17, and she's getting fucking canceled over it. Okay, what's this? Oh yeah, Gen Z, trying to cancel Eminem over some of his lyrics.
Oh yeah, I did see that, which is just
yeah.
Wow.
So I mean, the 90s conservatives would be real happy with you. You're getting the job done just like 20 years too late. I'm going to get to that one in a second. Mumford & Sons banjo player taking time away after praising right-wing pundit. The right-wing pundit that he praised is Andy No, the guy who's reporting on Antifa shenanigans in Portland, right? All he said was, "Dude, your book is good." And now has to step down from Mumford & Sons, and he's not in the band anymore until further notice, which is basically never, because he apologized. You're not supposed to apologize. And then this is my favorite one. 3 Alabama professors are under investigation over racially insensitive Halloween photos of a Confederate uniform, whip, and a noose, right? And they're tying all these things together to make it sound like they had like a Confederate-themed lynch mob-themed holiday bash or a Halloween bash, when in fact those two things have nothing to do with each other. Okay, so number one, these 3 people in these pictures right here, I know it's a little small for people and you can't see them, but these 3 people are losing their jobs because this guy dressed up in a Confederate uniform, which is not a fucking problem, right? Confederates were things that happened, and it's goddamn Halloween. This guy's a judge. A judge sentences people to die or whipping back in the day. right? He's got his fucking judge wig and his judge whatever the fuck that is, and a noose and a whip. And people thought this was racist. And this chick right here, smiling and holding the noose, that's not even hers. Yeah, she's losing her job too. Great job, guys. So it's pretty widespread now. It's a big problem. I think that people on the left that are driving this, and it's a small subset of the left, right? It's even among your peers, Chris, it's a small amount of very loud, very angry Twitter activists that are driving this, and nobody has the stones to stand up to them. And the people that are driving this and the people that are standing by while it's happening should be breaking out in a cold sweat with how close we're becoming to like actually losing our culture, like huge problems.
Yeah, no, I pretty much agree with that. I mean, I disagree, and I think maybe this actually goes into your philosophical conversation of last week. I disagree on the necessarily. So this is a bit high resolution, but we can go back to the college campus. Yeah, shutting down Ben Shapiro's whatever. Not the smartest thing. Milo Yiannopoulos, he is absolutely a provocateur. And I think
he is. I didn't mention that, but yes, he's a provocateur.
And I think that is where it comes in. Is like I actually never supported any of the riots that happened. And we actually, Milo was supposed to come to our college, and we had a very peaceful sit-in where we all drank tea at the same time as his event. So nobody was actually going to show up to his event, and then he just canceled it. And so he wanted those things. He wanted riots, right? So in a way, I think not Ben, but people like Milo, in a way, provoke this because, and I'm not blaming him. I'm not blaming that. So please know that this is high resolution conversation. But that in that way, like that was almost a hope, because when you get more media attention, you get more people on your side, and you get more money. However, with that being said, the riots at any point in time were not acceptable. It doesn't get things done. It doesn't actually change something. And you're right. You end up with these situations where people are like, yeah, we're the peaceful protesters. And then like violent people come in, and it's like, oh, but it's like, no, it's like, all right, it was a bit more complex than that. But as you were saying, getting into more modern era, I agree. There's a lot of people right now that are losing jobs, facing repercussions, afraid to speak out on things that are quite trivial. Now, I'll be honest, I don't really listen to Three Doors Down anymore because they opened for Trump on his inauguration. But I'm not going to go through a riot. I don't want these people to lose their jobs. I'm just like, that doesn't really sit well with me.
That example is so great to transition into what I wanted to say. And sorry if I'm interrupting a big point for you, but I disagree with your history of this.
Oh, yes.
Tell me. I think cancel culture is the blowing up of something that we've done as a species and as cultures for millennia, which is you don't support people that you don't agree with or don't want to support. If the local store owner, the guy down the street on the store, like treated your wife inappropriately, you might not go back to a store and buy anything anymore. You might go to a different store,
example,
right?
I'm never going to have Disney Plus because I think they support people who commit genocide.
Right,
well, and so you're not going to watch WandaVision?
Nope.
I
might pirate it, but there goes my
it, and I'm gonna tell you guys.
Oh, you guys are gonna love WandaVision.
I've heard. We'll see. But that point is like, there's nothing. We don't think there's anything wrong with not supporting somebody's business, right? Okay, you like their business, you like the product they offer, but you don't like them, so you don't buy the product. That's okay, right? We think that's okay, and it's been that way for many, many years, for generations, right?
Yep.
That is cancel culture. But what's happening today is there's a permanent awareness of society now of these things that you've done or said or that have happened in the past, and it's exploding in a way that these very vocal people come out, and it's not just about one topic or the other. It started with a few different topics, but these people would come out and be vocal about your point of view or your whatever, and they were just canceling you that way, right? That's how it started. You gave some examples of colleges. Colleges decided that the students and also their faculty possibly just didn't agree with what was being presented. They just canceled the show. It's okay to say, hey, we don't want you presenting it at our at our business, at our facility, at our school, at whatever again, right? That was a single. Hold on.
Let me stop you right there. So the reason why DePaul didn't get sued into the ground for that was because they are a private university and they don't take funding from the federal government. These the problem with these. Hold on.
So okay, I mean,
wait. Are you trying to justify like canceling so that the Young American for Freedom or the YAF Foundation pays, I don't know, I think it was like $60,000 to get Ben Shapiro on the campus or something like that. Whatever the speaking fee is, and then the college shuts it down. Like he's just a conservative speaker.
So that's a different situation, I think. But in some light, I think it's not the same as what we're seeing happen today either.
I think.
So imagine I own a business. Imagine I own a business, and an employee comes to me and says, I want to host a lunch and learn, and I'm going to have a guest. And I say, yeah, go ahead and do it. And they fund it, and they get someone. And then as the owner of this company, I find out that the person they're bringing in, has something that I don't like, and that I don't want that person being related to my business at all. So I go and tell them, hey, that person can't be here, right? That's kind of along the same lines of what was happening at these schools. And I think that's okay. I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of censorship, but I also think it's okay that as a business, as a private organization, you can make these decisions. What it has blown up into, in my opinion, is now businesses, because it started happening so often and it became so vocal, it's more of exactly what Chris was saying earlier in the podcast, which is it started with, you know what, I'm just not going to, it's not even worth my time or risking the what's going to happen to even say these things, right? Yep. And so now businesses are falling into that line where it's like, hey, it's not even worth risking all of this shit. I'm just not going to be related to these people anymore. They're done. Off. We'll find somebody else, right? It's more trouble than it's worth. Right. And so it's gotten to the point now where if you do anything that could ruffle anybody's feathers, it's just not worth these companies and businesses' time to deal with it. It's a cover your ass legal side. It's keep your mouth shut, which is frustrating. I don't agree with it, but yeah, that's where we're at. And it's not because of some leftist push, in my opinion, or some ideological change in how we view things. It's because we have now a permanent awareness of people's actions and social statements.
I think it goes back to, to this idea. I've really been reflecting on this since last week, but like looking at situations in a high resolution versus a low res mentality. And I think society fails to see things in high resolution at the times that they probably should see it in high resolution. So for instance, like that person who tweeted something when they were 17, right? People grow and people change. And even if somebody was a bad person in the set when they were 17, 18, whatever, let them grow, right? Like, give them the opportunity to change, to evolve, to adapt. Everybody is relatively an idiot in high school. And we, unfortunately, we have this high resolution society now that in certain manners, like always keeps that imprint existing. Like, our generation of presidential candidates, when we're all 40, 50, 60, 70, we're going to see time and time again, people pulling out tweets, TikTok videos, Instagrams, like, look at John Parsley from when he was 24, look at this like sexist TikTok he posted. Like, we're going to see that. We're definitely going to see that in the future. And so, and I think we need to be conscious, like, of being able to delineate, like, genuinely, like, decisions of malice, decisions of immaturity that receive a punishment and then are dealt with, and that person moves forward in society. And finally, like, retribution, right? We need to deal with decisions that are retributive. And then finally, we just simply need to start looking at things in a growth perspective. Like, people do dumb things in life. That's the whole point of being human. We're all broken. We grow from that. And I think that's what we're missing out on right now. Like, that's what we're really missing out on.
And the Christians have a word for that. It's called grace, right? You give somebody grace, right? You give them the benefit of the doubt. You forgive them. You move forward, right? And I know Tim doesn't give a shit about religion, and he thinks it was bad. And I am an atheist, right? So there's that. I happen to think that we're missing a whole bunch of tools. And there was an
I don't
analysis
think religion is bad.
Look, there's a lot of people on my side say that the left has created a new religion, right? That the far left progressive movement is a quasi religion. But the problem is that they're missing a whole bunch of limiting principles that Christianity developed over time, right, to help bound it in, right? So Christianity is essentially, you could think about it as like a sphere where it kind of like takes care of all these different human emotions. It kind of like just kind of keeps you centered, and until you hit the 1500s and Martin Luther nails 95 Theses on the door, you're pretty much good to go, right? You have a system that keeps people generally content throughout their life, and they live their life in relative peace and harmony, and it helps them be moral, it helps them be good, this, that, and the other thing. But it seems to us on the right that the left now doesn't have, it's kind of like a new religion in how passionate people are about it, but there's no limiting principle. Like the question is how far do you go, right? And this is kind of what we're discussing right now is like, when do you stop canceling people? Like, how much is too much, right? Is it a tweet from high school? Is it, is it 2 tweets from high school? Do they have to use a hard ER at the end? Like what is it? And you don't have that, and that's constantly evolving.
Well,
what's that?
The N-word's a definite cancel. Like you can't do that as a white person.
Look. Let me make a hard case to you. I think a lot of times we're having the wrong conversation. We may even be doing that right now, right? Because we're saying like, oh, did they really do something bad? How bad was it? Did they grow? It's like, no, it's not even that. Even if they did that bad thing, should they be canceled, right? Yeah. And I think you and I might differ on this, Chris, because I think, and again, I am not a goddamn racist, okay? For the 1 millionth time, I don't think racist people should lose their jobs for being racist, right? Let me explain. Let me explain. Right? Because being racist, for example, just taking this one particular example, is one particular type of being an asshole. It is a sort of a subset of assholism. But we don't fire people for being assholes, we fire them for being bad managers. Right? So it's like,
but if you're racist, you're probably a bad manager. I think.
Okay, and if you're an asshole, you're probably a bad manager. But we don't fire people for being assholes.
Well,
right?
So let me just. If there's opportunity for grace, I mean, all right, I'll preface this. I won't go full blown progressive on this, even though I know other people will. Opportunity for grace. Opportunity for growth. If somebody is a qualifiably racist person, like there's no gray area. Like forget all that dynamics of the conversation. Like, whoa, are they? No, this person's actually racist. They hate black and brown people. Opportunity for grace. Opportunity to say, okay, because if we don't help this person grow from his assholeness, from his racism, he's going to continue on with the rest of his life being a racist or being an asshole, probably both.
Right, in the dark, wherever you canceled him to. He's going to keep being that way, except now he's going to have a reason to be resentful.
And so let's try our best to genuinely help this person find a better path, like offer grace. And if we do that, and this is going to be different case by case, person, whoever level of grace, I guess, if after a true, honest to God effort is made, and this person still continues to be this terrible person, and it's like, okay, you offer forgiveness, but you also don't owe it to yourself to accept the burden of that for the rest of your life. Like, I will do everything I can if I find somebody with prejudice to help them get through that. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to continue to surround myself with that energy after I've tried for months and months and months to help, right? So I think that is a line that I will at some point, be like, all right, you know what? I've done everything I can. You're still a racist asshole. Like, goodbye. Like, find a new job. You cancel them.
Culture is about the people. It is in a way a little bit, because like somebody does something wrong and then somebody vocalizes their disagreement with it, but they're not getting canceled because the company or the business disagrees with what they did or anything like that. Like, I mean, we talked about Gina Carano a couple of weeks back, I think. So let's talk about that real quick. Disney didn't fire her because the managers and owners and higher ups in Disney gave a shit about her political views. They did it because she's politically untouchable with what she said, for some portion of the population, and Disney doesn't want to upset a chunk of their viewers, right? It goes back to what I was saying before. It's not about like, hey, we're canceling you because you're not good at what you're doing. We're canceling you because we don't want to deal with the repercussion of the shit that you're bringing on us. We'll just find somebody else, right?
Yeah,
and
I find that, and not to cut you off, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
And for what it's worth, I'll actually come to her defense on this. Is that, you know, at one point we're in this weird like constant paradox, constant contradiction, where on one point we're saying like companies should take a stand on what they believe in, and individuals should use their voice and their position of power, including celebrity status, because celebrity status is influence and therefore it is power, to make a difference, right? And so just because her views are different than my views on things that are politically debatable, it's not like she came out and was like, yeah, I hate black people, right? All right, if that's the case, I cancel it. But at the same time that you have Chris Evans, you know, doing incredible work on racial justice, you have her coming out and saying, all right, I disagree on X, Y, and Z, right? And so I think we need to be very conscious of like, me on the left, even though I love Chris Evans and I don't know, the dude who plays the Hulk, I'm forgetting his name. They're doing some cool, fun activism stuff. Yeah, Mark Ruffalo is out here.
I find them both to be insufferable.
Yeah, he's doing great work on the environment. You know, we're not canceling, and I'm sure, right. You are a Marvel viewer. You find Chris Evans insufferable. So do, I'm sure, 20 million other people. But Disney hasn't fired Chris Evans for the stress that is brought on by people on the right considering him insufferable. Whereas this individual, I don't watch The Mandalorian, you know, provokes the liberals, the 10 to 20 million liberals who are like, crazy person. And they're like, all right, too much headache for us. Let's like back off from this. I think that is where I cancel culture has officially gone too far for me. But I now if it's and this is why case by case and like resolution matters. Like someone comes out and they're explicitly like, I am racist, or they're doing something that's like, there's no doubt. Like there's just no doubt. Then it's like that's a
right. For example, when Steve King, the Republican representative, came out and said, I don't get it. What's wrong? When did white nationalists become a verboten word? And everybody's like, what do you mean? When did it be like the 50s? Like,
yeah.
What do you get out? You know what I'm saying? Like until you find out that they actually are practicing.
I don't know if it's this, but and this is anecdotal evidence, but from the people I know in my life, those that are more conservative generally are more like, just if somebody says something that they don't agree with, or they're just like, whatever, like then don't talk to me, or like, you know, they don't make a big deal out of it. Whereas some of the people I know that are extremely liberal and farther left, somebody says something they don't like, it's like the end of the world, and they have to tell everybody, and they have to make a deal, and they have to get it fixed and changed. And I think part of cancel culture being skewed right now is because of that. It's because the squeaky wheel, right, gets the grease, right? It's like the people on the right, like with Gina Carano, that was a good example. There was a bit of an uprising on the right from that one. I think it was kind of beginning to be a tipping point, but not enough yet, probably. But if every single Republican or conservative or
not
anyone or moderate or moderate left, yeah, I was getting there.
I'm sorry. I don't mean
and to build off that,
were to cancel Disney Plus and say we want Gina Carano back, you better be damn sure she's coming back.
Yeah,
right.
And maybe that's where I'm going to make 2 points, but maybe that's where the left is a bit more mobilized. We understand at this point that the dollar, like money votes, right? And so like when we disagree with something, we actually pull our money out of it, which is different than maybe the right and moderates function. But to build on this, it's like, in terms of resolution, in terms of like outrage and squeaky wheel, and bringing back to the beginning of this, like Tim, you said something that I just wanted to the Texas example of chivalry, and then missing parts of the context. Personally, I think that's where outrage and cancel culture is really problematic right now, because to me, we're missing out on some clear context that I think this is where my alarms are off now, because I'm like, wow, this is going too far. So let's look at, and finally, I just want to say this, because this is a big thing that left the people like myself on the left will say to this is like, all right, everyone's like losing their shit about Dr. Seuss, but like black people are getting murdered, and they are, and I'm like against police brutality, and that's a whole other conversation. But I think that as human beings, we can talk about more than one thing at a time because we can multitask, and so this is a multitasking conversation. It's not like because I'm putting energy in this talk means I'm taking energy out of another talk. Like I will, just wanted to preface that. But so Pepe Le Pew, right? The skunk in Space Jam is getting canceled because he is a personification of rape culture.
Bitch. That's why.
What?
He's a stinky little bitch.
He is. He's so a perpetuation of rape culture, sexual assault. And now this is he makes unwanted forwarding advances on other like cartoons, and something that is being missed out on here because look, no one likes Pepe Le Pew. That's the whole point.
Yes,
he is a villain.
Preach. You got it.
Nobody likes him. I don't like him as a character. There's and the point is every single scene there's ever a time with him, there's an immediate reprimand. Like it's actually teaching by showing like if you act like this, you're gonna get fucking beat over the head with a giant cartoon hammer. Like that's the point. And we see this in other things. It's now like anime. It's really big on. Like you have like Demon Slayer. I don't know if you ever watched Demon Slayer. It's like an amazing show. It like outsold
nerdy than I thought you were.
I love it.
I don't have time to watch anime. I sit around polishing my guns all day.
Go watch Demon Slayer. Anyways, there's like a character there that like on the side of the road is like begging for this woman to marry him, and she's like, "What is happening right now?" And like the main character just like looks at him like, "You piece of shit," and like hits him over the head. It's great, and it's like it's immediately shown like for any kid watching this show, like if you see the character, the blonde-haired dude begging for this woman, you immediately know like, wow, that is socially unacceptable because you saw an action and received a consequence. You don't just cancel Demon Slayer, which is like an amazing show about empathy, about forgiveness, about grace, about seeing like beyond the worst in people, trying to see the best in everyone, even those who are rough around the edges, and we don't just cancel it. And so if we're drawing the line here, where we're now just canceling actions without context, we're on a very, very, very dangerous path, an incredibly dangerous path. Now, one thing I will say before I pass the talking piece back to you guys, this is different in my eyes than potentially Dr. Seuss, because where Mulberry Street I disagree with, if you dig a little bit deeper, like there's old printings of the Zoo book where literally like all the monkeys are portrayed as black people, and they've reprinted it, they've rechanged it, and it was like, all right, I'm not like that's racist. That's now here's the thing: it shouldn't be canceled. It should still be sold. But the difference is the context that's different is like the three of us can have an educated conversation on this, whereas like a 5, 6, 7-year-old has a very impressionable brain reading these books. They're ingraining that in them, and so I can understand that that's a different conversation than because there's also not a reprimand there. There's no reprimand. It's just like, here's a bunch of black people and they're being portrayed as monkeys. That's problematic, right? But Pepe Le Pew, there's a reprimand. And I think that now that we're canceling things that are meant to actually be like, hey, we're missing the point. We're on a really dangerous path. And my line is officially crossed on like cultural reformation. It's getting a little intense.
So sometimes, and this is a side point, but I wanted to throw this out there because it's a personal experience. Sometimes people really don't know what they're doing, and they're not given the benefit of the doubt or the chance to be forgiven. This actually almost happened. This almost happened to me. This is, I don't know, 10 years ago now. It's been a while, and I mean, back then I was completely political oblivious, and if you guys know my personality enough that nothing offends me. I don't care about anything. I'll say whatever I want. Like that's just my personality, right? So for this particular year for Halloween, I wanted to dress up as I forget the guy's name now, but it was like hide your kids, hide your wife, hide your boyfriends too.
The meme, yeah,
that guy, right? So I was dressing up as that guy, and it was that year, whatever year.
It was a dude. I'm thinking about Ain't Nobody Got Time for That. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, it was a dude. Is a black guy, but just it matters for the story. And so I wanted to dress up as him. And for the meme or whatever, and that was the year that it all happened. I was just gonna paint my face black. Like I didn't know that was
blackface, dude.
I didn't know that was a damn thing.
Look, and this is a perfect example. He didn't know what the hell he was doing.
Yeah. I literally just wanted to be this dude for Halloween. Like I bought a wig. I had bought he had a white wife beater shirt on or whatever they're called, tank top. And then I bought the outfit, right? And I was telling a friend about it, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna paint my face." He's like, "You're gonna do what?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You can't paint your face black." I'm like, "Why not?" For Halloween, I'm trying to be a black dude. Like, what is, And so I ended up buying an Obama mask, right? Like, because he finally convinced me, like he explained to me the situation. I still think it's ridiculous, right? That you can't do that. But I understand, like, I wasn't trying to offend people. I didn't want to make a deal out of it. So I went another route. But like, as an example, like sometimes people don't know what they're saying or doing is actually offending somebody, and then they get canceled for it. And to me, that's absolutely asinine.
Because it's like, blackface, and I'm glad your friend was able to have a conversation with you. I'm glad you understand. Like, yeah, you might think it's ridiculous, but like, it's considered remarkably insensitive to those to black and brown communities, and so it's like, you know what? All right, yeah, if really, if it seriously is an offensive to a culture, to a race, to an ethnicity, sure, I can take the step back, but like you said.
But that feeling right there is why cancel culture's gotten to where it's at.
Yeah.
But
look,
and I'm not saying we shouldn't be concerned with how other people feel, but that, like, and maybe, it's where you draw that line. So, okay, fine, we draw the blackface and we say, hey, that's not okay. But then the next thing, that somebody is offended by that, so that's not okay.
That's what I'm saying. There isn't a limiting principle, Chris, right? Because
like you said, well, it's just so funny. Like, I saw a tweet earlier. It's somebody was like, "Great, I'm so glad to see that like some cartoons were canceled on Space Jam. Now let me go send my my middle schooler to go murder hookers in Grand Theft Auto to save $5." It's like,
give me my money back. Give me that money back.
There's some now. Granted, I'm like, all right, look, I played Grand Theft Auto in middle school. When I have a kid, they are not touching Grand Theft Auto in middle school. I get it.
Look, to your point, Chris, I think, and then I got to wrap this up because we're going to move into bullshit philosophy. But I think to some degree, the reason why that is because it's performative, right? It's kind of the cancellations follow the flavor of the day, essentially, right? It's just something. It's just a semi-arbitrary issue. There's obviously criteria that has to fall into it, right? It has to be obviously perceived as racist or perceived as one of the hot button issues, but it's mostly performative, I think. And you don't really have to agree to that because I haven't gotten into that. But just to recap, like, this whole thing, as you can kind of tell by my earlier rant, like I'm really, really spooled up about this, right? And this is like a really, really big problem. And I'm not sure yet how to stop it, right? And I don't know if there is a way to stop it, right? And it's gotten so bad that, let me just share this with you, right? This is kind of where it's starting to get really personal for me, right? So it's gotten so bad that the other day I was visiting with my father, and I was talking with him about politics out in the woods. And when we moved into talking about Black Lives Matter, my father, alone with me in the woods, had to throw out disclaimers about him not being racist, right? My father, who I've known for his entire life, and I know that he's not racist, he felt that he had to throw out the qualifier that he wasn't racist because everybody's under suspicion now, right? And everybody's this close. And the moral, again, from last week, the purists are just canceling everybody. You know what I'm saying? So
well, I think to go on that point too, I know you're wrapping it up, but I think the line of what racist is changing, and that's probably part of why. Because I know when I talk with my friends and even some of the viewers, like Denny's a good friend of mine, when we talk, we often have to throw out disclaimers to each other about that when it's just us and we know each other. Like, it's is not maybe as close as you and your father, but the same thing. So I think it's because it's
but it's my dad.
Yeah.
Right. Look, I see what you're saying. It's a close friend. Okay, I get it, but it's my goddamn dad.
I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways, look, we're gonna fix it here on the Left Right Center show. We have all the solutions here. It's just gonna take us a while to get to it. So, Chris, before we go to the next segment, I was thinking about this. It's so funny, like between you and me, like if I remember one time, like I told a story about how there was some media that helped me sort of be more empathetic towards gay guys. And it's so funny, like you and me, when we find common ground, we like give each other verbal cookies, like, oh, good boy. And then like when you agree with me on cancel culture stuff, I'm like, oh, Chris, you good boy, you. Like, I just thought that was funny.
No. So, I mean, it's definitely, but you know, for what it's worth, like in the spirit of the podcast,
yeah,
what I am speaking out right now is a feeling of many people who, you know, at this point, I don't know if I'm even progressive. I guess like I'm like a democratic socialist, but
no, sure you are. Keep to it, man. You're progressive.
No, but it's like, you know, it's a lot of the people I feel that experience the forthcoming into the world of politics through Bernie Sanders in 2016, and are now feeling very similar to how I am feeling today. Now, there's many people on that bandwagon that kept going on it and are now the ones perpetuating. But there is a healthy dose of us that are like really far left who are like I have meme chats with like full blown like communist socialists, and I'm like, you know, and that's a little far from me economically, even though I am like a bit there. And like I want universal healthcare. I see things and I'm like, yeah, no, we're agreeing right now. We're definitely agreeing that like this needs to stop. Like that's a little too far for us. Like let's like rein that in. And so it is something that, like, you know, for the record, I'm not isolated and feeling like, okay, things like this we're contextually, we're missing out on context while we're canceling, and we're on a dangerous slope, right? Because like, you know, censorship through culture is probably an even is way more powerful than censorship through the government, because government, you know, you can rebel against. Like culture, you know, it's a lot more deep, right? Like that's the whole. Like 1984 isn't about the government. It's that they created a police state, and a police state, as it exists in apartheid, is not that there's a police in every corner. Exactly. And the second, once you reach monitorship amongst your peers, that's a true police state. And we're not there.
That's what I was talking about. That's my skin started crawling when my dad, when we were alone, had to throw out qualifications that he wasn't racist.
And that's where, like, to me, it's like, you know, we're not there yet. We're not going to be there for a long time.
No, I don't want to overblow it,
but this is a path that could lead to that if you play cards right over a couple decades. It's concerning. It's concerning.
All right, so we can actually just honestly, we can segue right into this last big idea that I had. Right, normally this is the bullshit philosophy with Nathan. I don't know exactly how philosophical this is, but it's definitely a big idea. And it's a little bit of a turn even for the darker, which is, you know, crazy because now I was having a bad day at work. So how much is too much, right? So when on each side, even, you know, like whatever it looks like to each of us, is when have things gone too far, right? So for example, Chris, you have found yourself agreeing in part with me that some things have gone too far, right? And we can even maybe generalize this out to the right, even though that's not happening right now. Or maybe you could talk about the left's deep dark fears about what you think the right is going to do, or maybe if Donald Trump had succeeded in a coup or something like that. Like my question is when do you stop being one country? When do you either divorce, succeed, culturally separate, go to war? What is it? Like whatever it is. Like when are we finally done? When can we no longer be one country anymore?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I don't know if Texas seceded, that would be like
that's always on the table. It doesn't even matter if it's a cultural split.
If Texas genuinely was like, all right, we're out, bye guys, I'd be like, yeah, time for we're going to war with Texas, I guess.
Apparently, it's not too hard to take out the power grid. So,
got him.
Got him. Be like, all right. No, I don't know. I mean, it's a really. I've been thinking about that ever since you framed it earlier, and
yeah,
I think sooner than that, you would end up actually in a police state situation. I think
from who? From the federal government?
I guess so. From both, relatively speaking, is like, I think it's almost like let me rephrase that. Like a cultural police state is what I think is more doable or viable than like a government, right? And so what I mean by that is like already we're seeing where people are like separating themselves inside families over things such as ideology, and that's scary. And look, I'm not one for I don't even know what family means necessarily. I know I have people I care and love about very much, but I have like you, Nate. Like I'm not gonna like stop talking to you because I disagree with 97% of the things you believe, right? Yep. Which I probably disagree with like 97% of the things you believe. I'm not going to stop talking to you because of that. And I think that's really important. And that's an idea that is slowly dissolving, and we're ending up in situations where people on all sides of the aisle, this isn't just a left thing but a right thing too, where like starting to separate from families, from friends, from childhood, companions and all whatnot, husbands and wives. I think if that continues further, then that's a reality I can see occurring, and that's obviously way too far for me. I think that's when we're too. I know I'm talking a lot, so I'll pass it back. But we're too immersed as a country to like civil war, because like, where would you even draw the lines? Like maybe the South versus here, but like you got like 50-50 splits in Georgia, you got 50-50 split, you got 60-40 splits in Connecticut. Right. Where do you draw the line, right? Like you can't just. Is everybody in the North going to relocate to the South, and then vice versa? And then, all right, now that everyone's on each other's side.
Right.
It's not going to happen that way. But I can see social isolation.
I think the idea of freedom is that you're able to not have to have a civil war, right? Because hopefully there's not laws in place that limit people's options or choices so much, despite their difference in views. But to your point on family, I think that is a new problem. If you look back even 30 years ago, you probably didn't see as big of a divide in families from ideological differences and political differences because they didn't have different sources of data. When they watched the news, it was the same news that everybody else watched. They may have interpreted it a little bit differently, but they at least now have a baseline of understanding of what information their parents or siblings or other people have. Whereas today, everybody's information is so siloed, and you become so believing of whatever it is that you're seeing that you don't have an understanding of the other side's point of view. You don't know, you don't believe that they're coming from a logical, rational place. You're just like, you're ridiculous for believing that. How can you believe that? What's wrong with you? And rather than being able to talk and listen, and most people don't have the open-mindedness that us three have. I mean, that's part of why, this is such a unique conversation. Right.
That's how we're here.
And so, you look at that dynamic and you see how that's causing these divides. That's a new problem. It didn't exist in the past because of how information's being exchanged. So, technology and social media there's a lot of new problems to solve.
Yeah, I had a super relevant point, but I'm actually I don't remember what it was, but I'm gonna talk about. So it seems to be a new American phenomena. I think it mostly started probably in the 60s with counterculture, right? There was probably a bit of a schism there, but it wasn't so bad, right? Because still at the end of the day, everybody was getting their news from CBS, the big three, right? So like even then, back then, it was just like, well, I know what my parents are for, and they're for the war in Vietnam or whatever it was, whatever the flashpoint was, and it's like, I just happen to disagree with foreign wars or whatever it is, right? And so there was those kinds of schisms, and some of them were real big, right? I'm sure there were conservative parents excommunicating, secularly excommunicating their children at that point. I know that happened, and then that kind of stuff has happened, like even all through the 80s, with the sexual revolution, then the resurgence of Christianity in the 90s, where there was that one last push to try to like retake the country, and then they kind of just died off as a political force, generally speaking, right? I'm not, don't mean to offend you.
Don't tell Trump supporters that.
Evangelicals. Yeah. No. But even then, they're mostly populists. Like, so a lot of them are Christians, but mostly populism. So, but like this, it's new for the country, but
it's not new, but it's much more common. I would say.
Right. It's definitely a phenomenon that we haven't experienced before, right? And I think I maybe we probably disagree with this to some extent, to a certain extent. It's almost guaranteed we do. But I believe the onus on this is largely with the left, right? And I'm going to say that because of historical context, and just correct me if you think I'm wrong, but the historical context I want to, right? The historical context I want to point out is that, like, if you read Alexander Solzhenitsyn's The Gulag Archipelago, it's a reflection on his time in the gulags of the Soviet Union, and it's also a reflection on how the Soviet Union started, right? And that is a very, very leftist ideology that gave rise to that. And there's a lot of common strains between the socialism of that and the sort of neo-Marxism of today, but we don't need to get into that. But, you know, children turned against their fathers, sons their mothers.
For those who don't know neo-Marxism, if you want to explain that.
Okay. So, yeah, I know. So look, I know we use big words, I use big phrases. A lot of times I don't have time to get into what it is. I'll try to do neo-Marxism as high level as I can. I'm going to lose a whole bunch of nuance on this. So for people who know what I'm talking about, try not to. Right? Yeah. Try not to tune out because you think I don't know what I'm talking about. I promise I know more than this. But neo-Marxism is actually it's basically that. Marxism, which used to be a class dynamic, the bourgeoisie versus the proletariat being the poor underclass of people, and the bourgeoisie being the upper class that oppressed the poor people. Instead of that, since that failed, right? That failed in, that failed in Vietnam, that failed in China, that failed in like everywhere that it was put out, it resulted in oppressive regimes, right? So when that failed and was discredited as an idea, generally speaking, the Frankfurt School of Germany sort of took that, and what they did was they remolded the power dynamic between bourgeoisie and proletariat, as in upper class to lower class. They took that and they put a twist on it, right? They said instead of the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, now we're going to focus on race, ethnicity, gender, all of these secondary characteristics, right? And so now it's going to be the power dynamics of whites versus blacks, of men versus women, but it's fundamentally the same thing, right? It's that there's a power structure for, in this case now for neo-Marxists, white men are on the top, and then down here at the bottom you have black women or black trans women who are disabled or whatever it is, right? The more out you are, the more intersectional your identity is, the more the less privileged you are. So basically that's neo-Marxism. And see, the reason why I don't do that, Tim, is I have no idea what the hell I was talking about. Okay, I was talking about the Soviet Union.
You did good. Good.
Was that good? Okay. I tried to do that as neutral as possible. I'm sure it was biased. But you see strains. What I'm saying is you see strains of that today. And what you saw in the Soviet Union, what you saw in China was that and every state, right? The People's Republic of that's China. I think it's People's Republic of North Korea as well. I forget. Whatever. North Korea. All of these states, right? You have to maintain the systems through totalitarianism, right? And it's leftist totalitarianism. What you have to do is make everybody suspicious of the other person so they can't trust them. Okay. And when every person is suspicious that their neighbor is an informer or their neighbor is going to out them to the public as an anti-whatever, right? In that case, in the Soviet Union, it was an anti-Soviet, right? It was a person who had non-party thoughts, right? And today, the reason why I'm talking about this is because I see this, and I'm not trying to say that we have that now. What I'm saying is that I see the strains of this, and the strains of this would be it's the exact same thing with my father in the woods. Okay, it's my dad worried that I'm going to think he's a racist if he tells me what he thinks about Black Lives Matter, right? And him and I have the same view on Black Lives Matter. We don't need to get into that, but the point is that he's it's creeping in already. He's already scared enough that his own son, who he knows is a conservative, who's very into these ideas, he feels like he has to throw that disqualifier out. And that's happening to everybody. A story I did not get into today, and I'll leave it at this, and you guys can wrap up. A story I didn't get into today is that in LA, I believe it was in LA, there's a group of students' parents who have to get together outside of, like, in secret, because they disagree with the curriculum, the woke curriculum that's being pushed at school. And they can't talk about it, otherwise they'll be shunned from social life, right? This is real life, right? And this is the modern equivalent to what was happening in the Soviet Union in its nascency. I'm not trying to claim that we're that bad yet, but I'm saying we're walking down the road and we really need to be careful.
No, sure. I like I said, we're on the in a couple of decades, if the cards got played the right way, or rather the wrong way, and like 30 to 50 years, yeah, you can see yourself in a serious, like, dynamic of this. I mean, now the crazy part about us is that we have also pockets of, like, ideology, and then you have mismatched individuals in those pockets. Like here in Connecticut, the reality is, like, if you have a Trump sticker on your car, like, it's not a good look, like, right? Like, you're going to be ostracized if you're rocking a MAGA hat in Connecticut. If I see someone with a MAGA hat, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, come on. Like, insurrection is, like, what comes to mind, right? Now, if you go to Alabama, like Kentucky, Missouri, well, Kentucky's kind of weird, but Kentucky, Missouri, Louisiana, Alabama, Arkansas, right? You go to these places, like, no one's going to ostracize you. It's the minority that would be, it's mismatched, right? Like, if I walk around with a Bernie shirt, people are going to look at me like, wow, look at that fucking socialist, right? And so I think both need to have a conversation right now, because we're in a situation where you know, we're constantly ostracizing each other to the point that, you know, this is where my progressivist comes in, and maybe my conspiracy theory, but who does that benefit, right? Like Nate, like, you, a middle class individual, let's, like, say you're a shitty conservative, and let's say I'm a shitty progressive, right? You, as a shitty conservative, say, fuck you, Chris, you're a terrible, 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 terrible person. You don't see me as an individual anymore. You see me as just, like, a crazy liberal. And then I start seeing you as, like, wow, look at this, like, make America great again loser. And I don't see you as an individual anymore. I see you as, you know, whatever, right? And so us,
mouthpiece for my ideology.
Sure, us as middle class people, sometimes, and then other middle class, lower middle class people, even upper middle class, right? All of us people, like, all fighting. We're literally crabs in a bucket. We're all fighting inside this bucket.
Yeah, the crabs in a bucket.
Right.
Tell people what happens to crabs in a bucket, because a lot of people don't know.
They get eaten.
So when you put crabs in a bucket, they try to escape up the side, but other crabs will reach up and grab them down and pull them back down because they're trying to climb up over them, right? So it's you put crabs in a bucket, they could get out, but they can't because they pull each other down.
It's crazy, and that's the scenario that we end up in. And look, I understand you guys can probably, you know, ideologies differ and whatnot, and wealth and inequality, but to me, it's like when we're all fighting at this place in our philosophy, all that ends up happening is that, you know, the people who currently generally hold power over us maintain their power and maintain their hold over us, because the poor people and the middle class people in Alabama are being just as oppressed in terms of those who maintain the power structures of this world as you and I up in Connecticut. Like, now I might 100% disagree with my Alabama counterparts, but that doesn't mean I want, like, you know, the wealthy and, you know, powerful people of the world to continue to have a hold over us. And if we're crabs in a bucket, the person holding the bucket is the one that continues to win.
Tim, what do you think? Like, I guess maybe you could close your thoughts out on this. But, like, for you, right? And we can go more hypothetical with this. We can sort of deviate more from reality, where maybe the left is in the up pendulum swing with it. What would it look like for you, either left or right? Like a right wing scenario. Let's say the right comes back in. There's a cultural resurgence. The right somehow takes Hollywood, or, you know, whatever it is. We take the institutions of power and we start instituting, you know, like zero abortion, I'm trying to think. Chris, give me egregious things the right wing would do. Oppressive, egregious things. Women's rights, trans rights, gay rights. Starts pulling all that stuff back. When would you think that it's? And I don't know, like, whether this is rebel or leave the country or secede or really get into activism. Like, what's your tipping point in either way?
I don't know what it is. I mean, I guess I'd know it when I see it, right? You see, it's kind of like love, right? No. It's, I mean, it's not something that hasn't crossed my mind already. Like, I've thought before, like, I get super frustrated with the way things are here. I'm like, man, if I could just pick up my career and my family and we could move to another country that it just uses their brain, right? Like, that's crossed my mind before. Not to say there is a country that's great like that. Who knows? You know, I haven't really done my research, but, you know, and it's not like conservatives don't do this.
We didn't even get into that too much.
It's an age-old tale of children being, you know, ostracized from the family because they don't believe in the religion of the parents, or don't follow in some cultural or, you know, historical thing that has to happen, right? Or that maybe they come out as gay, or anything that's not doesn't fit the structural narrative of what that conservative parental group believes. So this isn't unique to the left or to the right. This is human nature. It's just how it's in my opinion, it's how it's exploding with our new technology and our new world, and we have to learn as a society how to adapt to this. I think we're doing it wrong right now. I think catering to the sensitivities of everybody will leave you with a bland pudding. You know, like, just nobody can say anything, nobody can have an opinion. Everything's going to be gray. You know, you lose all the vibrancy.
Well, it's not even a bland pudding. It's tyranny, because you have to stop people from saying those things, right? And so those people, there has to be either an incentive structure, either social or government, whatever it is. It's actually tyranny, right? Because people have these opinions, they need to say them. It's not just that it's a bland pudding. It looks like a bland pudding maybe from the outside, but on the inside, you actually have to repress those people.
Well, yeah. I just meant what it feels like, and as you go out and about, right? Like, so I think we're going down the wrong path. But I know that I'm unique in that, you know, I personally believe that I'm responsible for how I feel, right? I'm not. It's hard for me to put myself in other people's shoes because I'm not sensitive about a whole lot. But also, I'm a white male, right? So, you know, per the arguments of the modern day, I don't have anything to be sensitive about. but I'm not like somebody. If somebody were to come up and say cracker to me or something like that doesn't offend me. It doesn't bother me. Although it's a derogatory term for my race or for my situation. You know, with that said, I feel like we're responsible for how we feel. Nobody else is responsible for how I feel. It's me. And it's my choice to decide if I'm going to get upset or hurt or offended by something somebody else did. And so I don't feel like it's anyone else's responsibility to. Now, if I go up to somebody and say, "Hey, you did X, Y, and Z, and that really offends me," and they purposefully do it again, that's a different story, right? Now they're antagonizing me. But until I've had a conversation with somebody, how is it somebody else's fault or obligation to know what's going to bother me or not bother me? And I wish that would extend through our society.
Chris?
Yeah, I mean, beautiful.
2 minutes. 2 minutes. Wait, hold on. 2 minutes or less. When do you pick up an AR-15 and start shooting people?
Never. Because
I don't. No, hold on. I don't mean school shooting. I mean, you know, get in a line and join the battle. Like you're literally succeeding. Let's put I'm doing the hypothetical. We don't have to do the left. Hypothetical right wing takes over. When are you picking up an AR-15?
Yeah, when I guess for me, if there was genuine government erosion, where I see like our systems have truly failed, like if Trump held a coup, if you know,
held a second term,
like if the right wing rams through a whole bunch of amendments to the Constitution that make it like supremely conservative and illiberal.
If I see banana republic energy start happening, where like, you know, Supreme Court picks if Supreme, I'll say this honest to God, if Supreme Court picks overturn the election, that would have been enough for me to be like, all right, I go rebel now. If the election was overturned, if that's that would have done it for me.
Word.
If after it went through all the courts, if the Supreme Court overruled it, or there was some other coup that like Trump held office even after it was like genuinely proven there wasn't voter fraud, that would have been enough to me. So yeah, I came pretty close, I guess.
Well, I hope you would still you would still Skype me across the battle lines. We could send each other cigars and nudie mags and amicable still. You know,
we can like.
How old are you? What? I'm older than all of you. What?
I was actually going for a Civil War reference, but they didn't have nudie mags back then. I don't think there's probably like photos of each other's wives.
Oh my God! Is that what you heard him last night? Is that what you have coming in the mail?
Jeez.
All right. Okay, I think that's going to be it from us, everybody. I had a great conversation. You know, obviously tensions are high, but you know, just remember, you can always talk to people. Just talk. I think one of the big solutions to all of this is just be brave. Be a little bit braver than you think you can be, and that's all it is. Like, just say the thing, right? And you're going to be surprised how many people agree with you, right? So I think with that, we're going to sign off tonight. Thanks for joining us. Hit the like and subscribe if you haven't already, and leave us a comment. It really helps. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
See you.